So what I'm wondering is if.
Hey, can you hear us?
We might have to pay for the one in Marlow because we got to update
Yes.
that. Like,
Okay, good. I was just checking the sound. It's working this time. Thank you.
um,
Now you can ask. Mike, are you at City Hall?
that right with you, Sam?
We are unmuted.
We are
Oh,
unmuted.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. I just pushed. That was bad. Hang on. Guys, come
Any more filers?
No, our table.
Oh, we got Postman, Flores, Ed, and who's that? Oh, and Nathan, he's just not.
Heather was just here. Oh, yeah, Heather's here. She's right here.
In the corner.
This is Heather.
Nobody puts Heather in the corner. Nobody. Not for all. You're being unusually quiet, Chief.
Well,
You can tell me.
Ted, RJ, we do have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
well, I guess I forgot, I lost it in my email.
See, we got a quorum. You want to go ahead? Yeah. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We're a little late because we were waiting for a quorum, but we will proceed and turn this meeting over to Mr. Childers.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is going to be our last breakfast meeting for the year, but and really, it's
Roll
good.
call.
Oh, you got to do a roll call.
Sorry, forgot roll call.
Hang on.
Say, we'll be right back. Chandler?
Alderman Alder? Circle back there. Alderman Poston?
Here.
Alderman Flores?
Here.
Alderman Smith?
Here.
And Heather? Alderman Alder? Maybe she can hear me.
Well, she'll be back.
Okay, well, we have 3 present.
There we go.
There she is.
Alderman Alder?
Here.
Thank you. We have 4 Alderman present, we have 4.
All right. Hey, welcome to the last breakfast meeting of the year. It really shouldn't take us all that long. It just depends on how much discussion we get into. But because 4 out of the 5 items are really updates for the board. But number 1 is something that I wanted to bring back because it was it's very timely. It is going to impact our development for the next year, and there's some coming forward. And so I asked Jeremy to put together a presentation so we could get some direction from the board today so that we could see where we wanted to bring an ordinance back to the board in the next couple of months. And that was regarding sewer tap-on fees, or what we often call connection fees, or sometimes we call it impact fees. You may remember over 15 years ago, I think it's 16 now, when we were going through the sewer plant upgrades. And before then, there were really hardly any sewer tap-on fees, water tap-on fees. They were artificially low. But then we borrowed a lot of money to improve our system. We continue to do that because we're bracing for the growth. We prepared for that, and now here we are today. And so what we've done is we've never really gone back and evaluated that from a standpoint of how that compares with other communities, and where we need to be and if it's still working. So it's high time that we reevaluate that. And that has all been part of what I call Ozark by the numbers. And Ozark by the numbers was basically a study that we commissioned Cochrane Engineering to do, in which they were to go and find out what the true cost of development was. And mainly I was trying to focus in on what the true cost of single family development was, because A, we have a lot of single family development, and B, anytime single family development is constructed the city of Ozark inherits a lifetime of new infrastructure and liability to take care of, and gets very little return on their investment in the form of property taxes. So we've all talked about that in the breakdown. So one thing that we need to do is we're here today to look at the sewer tap-on fee, and that is really something between single family and multifamily. I would tell you that my priority is to look at the multifamily, which is direly out of date and needs to be adjusted. And Jeremy's going to talk about that a little bit today. But you know that just recently you passed an ordinance that said that each year, in conjunction with, or at least probably at the same time that we bring the fee study forward for all the other fees that the city charges for the services they provide, we too shall bring an ordinance before the board to have them consider whether or not they want to increase the single family sewer connection rate, or I should say the basic sewer connection and or tap on fee by 3.5%, or whatever percent you decide. That has been done kind of on an automatic basis, but as we further look into the state statutes, we realize, our legal counsel has pointed out that, we really need to make sure that if we're going to increase those fees, we have a public hearing on that. And so each year now, an ordinance will come before the board, probably sometime in October or November, that will allow for you to make that decision on an annual basis of whether or not you want to increase that tap-on fee or not. But in the meantime, we paused that so that we could have this very discussion today, so that we didn't have to do this twice. And so now Jeremy is going to go into where we're at and where maybe he recommends we go. So Jeremy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and
Steve.
We can get to that.
Steve, just really quick, I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that this will actually come forward in January pursuant to that ordinance, not in the fall with the fee study.
Say that again, because I'm not clear on what you said, Amanda.
I'm sorry. The ordinance that was just passed specifies that this increase in the fee to retire the bond debt comes forward every January, not at the same time as the fee study. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Oh, okay. But it can't, okay. I understand. Thanks. I had the month wrong. Go ahead, Jeremy.
All right. Yeah, as you can see on the slide here, I know we've been talking a lot about sewer. We've got our user rates increased, but when we were doing this entire master plan, we studied everything from user rates to impact fees. We identified problems. We identified solutions. So I want you to kind of get a better understanding of what these impact fees are. You're essentially purchasing an interest or purchasing your portion of the water and sewer. It's paying to offset basically the development that is occurring. So in this case, water and sewer are the easiest ones to quantify. You're purchasing that capacity and you're purchasing that ability to treat. And right now in the upper right-hand corner, you can kind of see we're about $2,200. I want you to see this slide. This is from the Home Builders Association, the Springfield Home Builders. Right now, we're on the far left, Ozark there. You can kind of see that we're up there. We're not the highest one up there. I always like to throw in Kimberling City because they have a higher impact fee. But I want you to know something too. Historically, these have Republic, Nixa, Springfield, they're all coming up, and they've almost gotten to the point that the difference was much more drastic back in 2006, 2007 when we took on that bond debt, those state revolving funds. It really kicked us up there. And I know you guys have all heard, oh man, your impact fees are just astronomical. Well, when you compare them to other communities, yes, we're a little bit higher, but you know, $1,000 on a $290,000 home, it's really not that astronomical. So I want you guys to see that they're catching up. And again, this is all from the Home Builders Association. As Steve said, we were tasked with trying to figure out, okay, what is that number? How do you quantify the impact of every single home on the city? So this was something that we dove into extensively, and we talked about it back in October as well. But basically what we did was we analyzed all the developable areas. We studied the demand. We identified the acreage, and then we focused in on water, sewer, and transportation. Now, we're not going to talk about transportation today. That's a completely different subject, and that's something that we would like to talk to you about in the future. But what this allowed us to do is do a thorough analysis of our water system, our sewer system, and then we came up with this conclusion. Based upon the impact that they're having, you can kind of see at the bottom here, I'll put my cursor on it, each home would have an impact of $8,410. That's if each homeowner came in and said, I want to pay for my portion of water, sewer, and streets. Again, we're not talking about streets today, so I want you to look at what we are talking about, and that's water and sewer. So we put together this memo, and we came up with these numbers. That Ozark by the numbers gave us an astronomical figure of what it would take to provide redundancy, to treat the entire area for build-out. But it's what we had to do. We had to identify that number, we had to quantify it, and then we could back into what the impact fees are. So when we were looking at our impact fees, again, those were based primarily on those state revolving funds, the bonds. We've looked into that much more closely. We found out that our impact fees are somewhat antiquated in that we still had a lot of things that the market no longer demands or is being built in the marketplace. It focused in on more of individual toilets, lavatories, floor drains, all those things. And we started looking at communities around the region, and we noticed that several of them are basing it on meter size. And that is a more directly proportional example of what you are actually using. Your meter size directly impacts the amount of sewer that we treat. Now, in the summertime, that gets a little different because we don't treat irrigation, but that's why we have the summer sewer average. So we take that into effect. We've already planned for that. But after we quantified this table is what we came up with. As you can see at the bottom here, one of the things that, we hear a lot, again, is single family. But I want to say this too. I think it's important to note. We've sat through a lot of these meetings. We've sat through a lot of budget, a lot of financial forecasting meetings, and we've heard over and over again that single family. Steve has really beat this into our brains. Single family does not pay for itself. So what we're presenting here is an opportunity for at least the water and sewer to theoretically pay for itself based on Ozark by the numbers. If single family doesn't pay for itself, and we're not charging what the true impact is, that's in a way encouraging or subsidizing single family. Now, guys, I'm not here to try to just beat these numbers and throw them at you. I am so happy that we've done what we've done with the user rates. I think that puts us in a great position going forward. But I do want to present the data, and this is the data. So if we were to go to the meter size for water impact and sewer impact, you're looking at $4,200. $4,206 to be exact, would be each single family dwelling. And this is how it's broke down currently. You can see $2,200, and then we go up to 42. So it's a significant increase. But at least now we know what that true impact fee is. So we put together this graph to show you what we would look like if we were to make those changes. This is a permit based upon Ozark by the numbers. You can see in the left-hand column, Ozark, that would take us above Kimberly City. But again, that's what we were tasked to do. We were tasked to quantify the number. We've now provided you with the number. Now, as we dig into this, we also noticed that multifamily was paying a significantly larger portion to develop in Ozark. And of course, we've heard this time and time again. You all know, as members of the community, you know, people come to you and talk to you about everything. And one of them is the multifamily fees. So what we did a historical analysis on 2016. We had that was the last R4 multifamily that we actually built in Ozark. And if you're familiar with this Embassy Apartments, it's directly to the east of James River Church. Those were the last ones to be built. We pulled those fees, and you can see the total here in 2016. It was roughly $48,000. I can tell you, when working with that developer, that was a constant conversation saying your impact fees for multifamily actually prevents multifamily from being built in Ozark. And we don't just have to take the word of just that one developer. Steve can attest to this. We hear this from multiple developers. And what we're getting into a situation in Ozark, we're starting to find that there is no housing opportunities for a diverse range of socioeconomic citizens. Like, you know, it's a shame to say, but a lot of the teachers and a lot of the workers here in Ozark cannot afford the homes that are currently being built. And this is not an effort to, stimulate vast amounts of multifamily being developed, but it is an effort in terms of trying to level the playing field. Because a healthy community doesn't just need $300,000 homes. We need other living opportunities for those people that are working at the school, that are working at Tracker. It provides a more diverse community and better housing options all around.
Hey, Jeremy, let me jump in too. Jeremy's right. I think diversity in the community is something that you read all about a lot of the times. But one of the other things that you have to realize is that two of the fastest growing segments of the population are the empty nesters. It is the empty nester that is 60 and above who is looking for a higher end multifamily type of a scenario because they don't want that large yard and house to take care of. Also, the other empty nester, the 25 to 35 who's not married, doesn't have kids, but has a very good job, who's very entrepreneurial. We have spoken many, many, many times about trying to do what we need to attract those segments of the housing market, because I can tell you that the old way of building apartments, I mean, Cameron and I took a drive, it was a few months ago before the retreat, and you may remember we looked at all the apartment buildings that are being built in Springfield, and I can tell you they are not what people think of when they think of apartments. You can't find a single, you can barely find any one of the new apartment complexes that has a one-bedroom apartment that's less than $1,200 a month. $1,200 a month? I mean, come on, guys. So what I'm saying is that Jeremy is right in the sense that housing opportunities, living dwelling unit opportunities, it creates a higher level of density, or a greater level of diversity, in the community. But also, you're going to be able to draw in those other apartment levels, like in the Central Business District and in the backside of the Land Clearance for Redevelopment Authority property, the Finley River area. You're going to need to be able to have those. If you want a strong, thriving Central Business District, we need to add 100, 200, 300 keys down there. Otherwise, businesses aren't going to come because you don't have the density you need. So I think that we've talked a lot about different places of putting this kind of stuff. And, you know, it comes down to whether or not it makes sense on paper. And I can tell you, if it doesn't make sense on paper, the developers don't do it. So.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Steve. And, you know, to kind of build on that point, as you all can see, anytime you're downtown right now, we are setting the table to allow for that type of density and diversity, I guess you could say. You know, in the past, the current infrastructure wouldn't have supported that. But the improvements that we're making, this is going to make our central business district extremely appealing to a lot of those people that you're talking about, the empty nesters, the people that want more amenities and less responsibilities. So we'll finally have that in place. So I feel like this is all coming together at a great time. We're getting the improvements made that we need. We're doing the studies that we need. And the data shows us that we have been overcharging for multifamily. I put together, and you guys have already seen these back in October, but put together several scenarios that I'd be happy to send out to you on how this impacts not just multifamily, but commercial development. Again, it really does even the playing field, and it falls more in line with the other municipalities in this region. But let's go back real quick to that meeting we had in October, or maybe it was the September retreat. To me, that was a great meeting. We came up with a lot of ideas, and one of them was density, like we've just been talking about, encouraging that. And if we do make these changes, even in single family, if we go towards the model of encouraging density, and if you remember the presentation that Cameron gave, and those different styles of multifamily and really nice dense developments, suddenly these impact fees don't affect the bottom line as dramatically. If you get more lots on 1 acre and you encourage that density, you're spreading the cost out. So I want you to keep that in mind too. I know we're here to talk about multifamily, but when it comes to the single family, this in and of itself, these impact fees that we're talking about, may further encourage what I think the board has identified as a goal, and that's to create more dense housing options. So keep that in mind as well. We all know we're growing. I don't think that anything we do here today will drastically impact our population growth. But I do think we've finally got the numbers to show you that if we were to go by Ozark by the numbers, these would be our rates. But back to the multifamily really quick. Look at the difference, 2016 to 2020. That's a game changer. If you've ever put together a pro forma for a development, as you're penciling in those numbers and trying to hit that ROI, this can be the game changer in that entire pro forma. And that's what we hear consistently from these developers that want to come in and provide these opportunities, especially in the downtown. So I want to go back to that. Really, that's, like I said, we discussed this a few months ago. That's where we're at. You charged us with trying to come up with a number. We have worked, and Steve will tell you this took some time to try to quantify that number, but we feel like we've got the right number. What's in front of you now is the best representation of the true impact based upon an engineered study. And these meter sizes, water impacts, and sewer impacts are a direct representation of the usage and the impact on our system.
And I'm going to be
any questions?
Jeremy and I are not proposing. We know the realities of this. We felt like in order to have this conversation, we needed to bring you guys the true cost. That's what we want a board to be able to look at. We're not necessarily sitting here proposing that we increase the residential single-family tap-on fee to $44,206. We realize that the Springfield Board of Realtors, we realize that the Home Builders Association, we realize that the builders that are out there, I mean, just from a marketability standpoint and a perception standpoint, we don't want to be the highest in the area. That's really not good. I think the fact that we have that 3.5% question that we are going to ask ourselves every January of every year, now that makes a little bit more sense. And now we have something that we can base that on because we've got a ceiling that we're trying to go to. So if we say 3.5% a year till we get to $4,206, that at least gives us that range to go to, regardless of how fast we get there. But certainly after 16 years of not adjusting multifamily, we certainly have a discrepancy there that we need to get fixed. So again, we're not saying jump out there and raise a single family tap-on fee to $4,206. I just think now that that now when you evaluate the 3.5% question every January, you're at least going to be able to have something to go back to and say, the reason why we're doing this and this is justified is because of this study. And I felt like that you needed to have that. So anyway.
Jeremy, I got a question. Can you draw the distinction between what's paid for by a connection fee and what's paid for by the user fee?
Yeah, so the connection fee is essentially buying that vested interest or that portion of, imagine the treatment plant is large pie, to put it in graphical terms. What you're doing is purchasing a piece of that pie so that your sewer can be treated. Imagine the water as well, all the storage tanks that we've got in the air. What you're doing is purchasing that ability to store your water to be used by those individuals. Now the user fees, Alderman Poston, are more geared towards operations and maintenance. So I hope that makes sense. You're buying into what we had to build to allow you the opportunity to build an Ozark.
So, but my question, I guess, becomes, or here's where I'm kind of, and this is fuzzy math perhaps, but so if I bought in today and I paid, whatever, a $1,700 impact fee here, 10 years, 20 years down the road, we've brought more people in. At some point, we need new infrastructure, right? Does everybody's, is the cost of that new infrastructure expected to be carried entirely by new impact fees?
No. What Jeremy was that that you never really will be able to, you'll never be able to pay for the cost of sewer and water through impact fees. Otherwise, your impact fees will be like $10,000 or $12,000 per unit. It's just almost impossible because the cost of replacing that sewer capacity, like you said, Nathan, 20 years down the road, the cost of replacing that capacity that was used today versus 20 years from now will be so much higher that there's almost no way you'll be able to catch that up. So the majority of the revenue that's generated, it really is from the user fees, which kind of goes to my point about the multifamily, in that we've got a lot of multifamily property already zoned in Ozark. And I think that if we put the right requirements on the multifamily to get the quality development that we want, I think that it's a win-win. And the reason why I say that is because with multifamily development, what you have is you don't have public streets, you don't have sidewalks and curb and gutter and street lights. You don't have those expenses that we have to take care of as a city. Those are all private improvements. And so now you're getting the revenue from the water and sewer user fees. You're also getting the tap-on fee up front, but you're getting that continuation of the user fees, that continuation of revenue, but you don't have the same amount of infrastructure that you're responsible for to take care of forever. So, Jeremy, go ahead. I didn't mean it.
No, if Alderman Poston has any more questions.
Oh, Bruce. Bruce?
Yeah, this question is directed to Steve. If we believe that the numbers here in terms of actual cost of single-family residential housing are accurate, I guess that would mean that that we are subsidizing single-family homeowners from other revenue. I'm guessing sales tax revenue. I mean, is that right? I mean, it has to come from somewhere. So if we don't get the fees this way, we're paying for it out of our general sales revenue. Is that a way to look at it?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's one way to look at it. I mean, you're not charging what the true impact is. Now, this is, again, like Jeremy said, this is just water and sewer. If you'd actually add transportation in there, your residential single family impact fee would probably be $7,500 to $8,000 a house. Because really the sewer and water operation and maintenance, just like we discussed, is paid for largely by user fees and the amount of that service you use. When you add the streets in there, we don't have user fees for streets. We don't have connection fees for streets. We don't have anything for streets. And so really that's where your imbalance comes from. And I know I use Apple Creek a lot just because it's a relevant one. You look at the cost of going into a subdivision like Apple Creek and replacing the roads, and based on the amount of property tax and sales tax that neighborhood has generated. And the study showed that it would take about 56 years for that subdivision to ever pay for itself just for the roads. Now, again, I know we're not talking about roads, but on just the water and sewer, the residential single family is probably being subsidized by, I would say, not general funds. I would say that it's being subsidized by the user fees from water and sewer. You have your tap-on fees and your user fees, and so I think that the user fees are subsidizing part of that cost, and we have the tap-on fees, which goes directly into the building permit cost, kind of lower, and it's being really picked up by the homeowner once they move in. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, well, and I apologize. I had some trouble logging into the meeting, so I missed the first part of the presentation. That I just couldn't remember when we did this study. We're just looking at the impact on our water system. I guess that is that the study that we're going by.
We actually did our water, sewer, and transportation.
So
yeah,
water.
Okay, so our study does address water, sewer, and transportation.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, and
far more difficult. The transportation impact fees and charging for transportation and things like that. That is a much different legal course you have to go down than what we're talking about today. This is just water and sewer and reevaluating the water and sewer tap-on fees, because we haven't done that in 16 years. So we're just looking at that. The transportation and paying for transportation is a whole different animal, which we'll have to talk about some other day.
I guess when we did the Ozark by the numbers, I'm just trying to remember. I thought we measured the cost of a general impact of a house on a single family home on Missouri. Is that what I'm looking at here? Or on Missouri?
Yes, that's.
Okay.
But again, that's based on 2.3 homes per acre, which has kind of been our general development style throughout Ozark. If you were to increase density, like we've talked about so many times, those impact fees could essentially be offset. If you're getting 4 homes on an acre, or some of the things that we've talked about with getting creative with our design and coving and allowing more density, like we're seeing in several other communities, that impact fee then becomes more manageable, because instead of 2.3 homes per acre, you're getting 4 to 5 homes per acre. So that's just something to keep in mind too. If that's where we want to go, which at that last retreat, it sounded like we were getting pretty excited about getting creative with the types of homes and neighborhoods that we want to build. I think we're tired of the cookie cutter ones. And I went out of that retreat pretty pumped up, because it looked like we got a pretty clear directive. Let's get creative and go from there.
That was my impression too. Okay, thank you. I'm back. I'm with you. I'm in sync.
So I guess I do want to ask the board. I mean, if we were to bring an ordinance forward to you in January or February that would adjust the rates, probably leaving the single family as it is and looking on an annual basis at the 3.5% increase for sewer, but bringing forward the adjustment for the multifamily, is that the direction you want us to go? I mean, that's kind of what staff is and what we're proposing. So,
Would you rephrase that for me? You're wanting to leave it at the current plus add 3.5% a year for single family?
I'm saying, yes, I think that if you remain competitive in the single family market, and the perception is that single family is still something that you want to have here while you are working on changing the ordinances to allow for a higher level of density in single family, then you could achieve getting to the $4,200 eventually by just increasing it 3.5% on an annual basis, so that you don't shock the market, and you can do that. But I think at the same time, we need to bring forward an ordinance that would allow for the adjustment of that multifamily, so we can try to achieve another economic development goal, which is to bring density and infill to those areas that we wish to bring density and infill to, by not increasing the cost to the city.
Well, I'm 100% in favor of making the adjustments on multifamily. I think we need to do that. We've needed to do that for a long time. But I'm a little hesitant to do a 3.5% increase on a $2,900 tap loan fee that's already the highest in the area. So, my thoughts. Come on, let's get some discussion. RJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it would be about what, an $87 increase on a 3%. Is that right? And I do think the multifamily thing is a good idea, especially if it brings us more in line with what our neighbors are doing, to make it more realistic to be able to get more dense housing here. Yeah, I guess when we're bringing up user fees too, just to make sure I'm understanding, we got our user fees that are increasing, but we're also talking about now about also putting this on the hookup fee, the impact fee whenever the developer comes in. So this 3% increase to $87 is what something that developer is going to have to pay on top of something else. And I'm kind of with Rick there. I think we should try to stay within. I think we should try to stay within what our neighbors are doing. And right now we already are a little bit high, but I wonder how our neighbors are offsetting those fees right now. Is it because they have other tax revenues and we don't? Is that how they're absorbing those costs, or?
Well, it actually, because of the improvements that we had to make in 2006 and 2007, when this is previous administrations, but they were forced to make these substantial improvements in the new Elk Valley treatment plant, the new trunk line. That took us from having one of the lowest are one of the lower impact fees to the highest around, because basically we were forced by DNR saying, you're not going to get any more homes built, any more sewer connections until you make these improvements. And when they wrote the bonds for those improvements, they put into effect this goal of, hey, here's your impact fee, and it's going to increase by 3.5% each year. Now, since then, Amanda and others have found that we need to approach that a little bit differently. But yeah, RJ, the catalyst to take us above and beyond all the other surrounding communities was that huge expenditures in 2006, 2007. And the reason why we're seeing other communities like Republic and Nixa and Willard even start catching up with us is because now they're being forced to take on more bond debt to treat their sewer. So we were a little ahead of the game, if you will, on that large expenditure. We're seeing that happen. Republic's really, they're great, they're growing, but they've got some real problems to solve in terms of sewer out there. So you'll see those go up as well.
Do we think that, do we think the $87 increase or the 3% or whatever it will be, do we expect people to, are developers making a fuss about our hookup fees for single family homes right now, or does it really get mentioned at that point?
I think that
it does get mentioned.
Yeah, I think they're used to what it is. They expect to pay a little higher when they come to Ozark to work. I mean, they know that. But, and I'm not saying we have to raise it 3.5%. I'm just saying that we put together the data that if you were to raise it 3.5%, you're not doing that arbitrarily. You have something to base that on. I felt like that the city of Ozark needed to have that firm foundation to justify any increase in a fee. And I think Amanda would probably agree with me on that. So putting the data together was something that I think we needed to do to allow us to evaluate that on an annual basis. Whether or not you choose to do that, that may be a bad idea because you want to remain, competitive and at only $87, all you're doing is infuriating the developer and the builder and really not generating a huge amount more increase in your actual tax. So you got to wonder if the political capital is worth it.
Well, and one thing I was just going to say is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I didn't know you weren't done.
Well, and one thing I was going to say is, I guess if we're lowering our impact fees on multifamily and knowing that we, in a smaller space, we get a lot more of that monthly revenue for the usage fees, I guess really, if that worked out correctly, we technically, in theory, we'd have more money coming in that way than the $87 we're increasing on our single family, correct? Is that kind of our goal there, is to generate more revenue through the monthly fees by having more people using it?
I think that's the idea of density, increasing density. Yes, it's just it will be the result of increasing density is that you'll have more users and therefore you'll have more user fees.
Sam, let me ask you to go back to the screen with the fees from the different neighboring cities.
Jeremy's actually in charge of that.
Yeah, the lower left. There we go. All right, RJ, you were indicating 3%. It's actually, if we did it, it would be 3.5%. And even if it was 3%, it would take our fee over $3,000. And I mean, it's still the same amount of money, but by having a tap-on fee or an impact fee that's over $3,000, when the other ones have a 2 in front of them or a 1 in front of them, I just would rather increase density by going with the multifamily and putting more emphasis on I guess it would be RD development, smaller lot sizes to get the density. That's just my preference, but it's certainly not my decision.
I agree with you there. I do.
Hey, I have a question for Amanda or I don't know, maybe Jeremy one, I don't know which, but can we change the fees based upon the water plane they're on?
You can establish an impact fee. So this impact fee is tied to the retirement of the bond debt. If you wanted to enact a separate impact or tap-on fee that would go to a project related to a specific area, yes, you can establish a boundary for that specific type of project.
Yeah.
Okay. And
And Nathan, go ahead.
Ted, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I got just a couple points. The CPA in the room doesn't care about the percentage increase. It's trivial, so it's not a big deal. What I do care about, though, is we need to encourage multifamily, and we need to encourage more affordable single family in Ozark. And we need to discourage expensive homes in Ozark. So one of the things, I'll give you an example. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be empty nesters at our house. We don't need as big a house as what we got. But the question becomes, if we sell our house, where do we go in Ozark? And I draw a bunch of blanks. And that's not what we want for the city. It's not what I want for me or my wife. But I draw a bunch of blanks. Where do I go if I want to downsize in Ozark? I don't want more expensive houses, because more expensive houses, the people don't stay here. They go somewhere else to work, because we don't support high income people in Ozark as far as jobs. So I want to discourage expensive houses. I want to encourage more affordable single family and the multifamily. So my question is, could we do a tier? And Jeremy and Steve, I don't know if this is a smart idea. I don't know if we can do it. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. Could we do a tier on single family? One, it's expensive if you want to build a big, expensive house. Two, it's not as expensive if you want to build an affordable house. For the tap-in fee or the connection fee.
I'd like for Amanda to weigh in on that, but my thought is that would be discriminatory, because they're going to probably use the same amount of water.
Well, and it may be, and Amanda, I don't mean to cut you off here, but the point being, whether we can do that or not do that, the bigger point is we need long-term, we have to decrease the number of expensive houses in Ozark. We have to provide more affordable houses in Ozark until we start inside of Ozark producing the high-paying jobs that will keep those people buying the expensive houses in Ozark. Because this scenario is no different than what happens in downtown cities. People start congregating, they have goods and services, then the cost of being there becomes too much. Everybody moves to the suburbs, the downtown dies. Think of Ozark that way, not just our square, but think of Ozark as a downtown. What will happen if we continue allowing very expensive houses, but we do not support that with the high-paying jobs inside Ozark? If we do not support it with that, Ozark will die. It will be at some point in time, Ozark will die, because it will be too expensive for anybody to live here. And that has nothing to do with taxes. It has everything to do with infrastructure. So somewhere along the line, we have to have, and today's not the day probably, and I'm sorry, but it's on my mind because of what I'm hearing. We have to start addressing that issue. We cannot continue to allow the very high wealth people to live in Ozark. And listen, I don't mean that discriminatory. Big picture, if we build expensive houses, if we attract expensive people that live here, and those expensive people continue to go somewhere else to work and spend all their money, Ozark will die.
Well, I think one of the ways to do that, to encourage the starter home or the smaller homes or the downsize homes, whatever you want to call them, is to do what we can to make development costs less. Because the margin on a smaller home is a lot less than it is on a larger home. And builders, for the most part, aren't as excited about building something with a small margin. So we have to encourage lower fees. Not that that's a smart idea, but that would be one aspect of it. And smaller lot sizes. And that's spoken with some amount of experience.
Well, no, yeah, absolutely, sir. That's what I was saying. I'm not the person, I mean, I'm just big picture here, but I'm not the person with all the experience and the knowledge of how to achieve it. But that's where the experts like yourself and others come into play.
Well, density is the key. However you accomplish that, or at least the biggest part of it.
Okay.
I think Bruce has a question.
Oh, okay. It is really hard to see the people with questions. I'm sorry. Bruce and RJ, I don't know who was first. Let's go with Bruce.
Thank you.
Well, there's a glare on the window. It's not just the size.
I can shut it.
Go ahead,
Well,
Bruce.
You know, I mean, if, like Ted was saying, if you're looking at big picture, you know, our community has twice rejected the use tax. And the messaging has been quite clear on that, which is our town is not able to maintain or sustain, is not able to sustain services that most people expect. And that is evident in basic things such as the unavailability of parks in the different parts of our town outside of central district. So I think you know, if you kind of look at it like this and you're looking at development, you know, one thing that is apparent as a citizen's concern is, well, don't do anything that makes it less likely to sustain government services in your development thinking. So I think that's one interest that we have to acknowledge and understand. I think that is out there. And then something else that I noticed, and I can't be the only one in this room that noticed, when new developments have come in, the feedback that we have received from citizens is we want smart development. We don't want development in single family homes that doesn't make sense. And they're, of course, looking at it from the point of view of property values and impact on their neighborhood, but you can also broaden it to say, you know, with the first interest that gets talked about, which is, well, just make sure that when you develop, don't develop Ozark backwards and have more families than you can support and have those families shop elsewhere. And so, I mean, those are two interests that work in favor of a 3.5% increase on single family homes for right now. And those factors, of course, work very much into Cameron's proposal for very smart development, small lot, where that could also meet, you know, the other interests that I've heard, you know, Rick talk about and Steve talk about, which is, you know, to not make it so that Ozark has a reputation for stagnation. And, you know, the code that Cameron is working on, I don't know if that's a fact, but I assume we were presented something with the view that we would actually execute on something like that. You know, would really kill a few birds with one stone, because developers would make money, quite a bit more money on their developments. The people who are next to these developments would be thinking, oh no, this is going to increase our property values. But still, I think that, you know, you still have to wonder about the economic case of, you know, are we going to recoup our costs overall, and what message it sends to just, you know, continue to subsidize single family homes in the context of people that are already here in Ozark are saying, well, we don't want to spend any more on taxes here. Twice said that. You know, at least we could assure them, you know, that we're thinking in terms of sustainability without raising taxes as best we can. when we're thinking about development. That's my 2 cents.
RJ, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say, and I think it ties into this, and I think this is kind of where we're all getting to. I think what we're trying to accomplish here is how to encourage the right kind of development and things we want to do without, getting out of step with our neighbors and things like that. But I think one thing that and there may be reasons why, and this is not in any way, don't take this as any kind of criticism or anything like that. We're a smaller town than a lot of people around us, but one thing that we were talking about earlier is, when the developers, everybody wants to complain about particular things. And anytime you build in a lot of different places, and then you go to a particular town and you go to build, everything that's out of step with everything around you gets all the attention. I think one thing that doesn't get attention is when they're used to paying fees. In other words, it's really interesting where if you go 20 miles north of here, you're going to spend just thousands of dollars in permits just on any kind of trade or any kind of particular thing. And they're so used to doing that, no one bats an eye at it. But then you come here and you want $87 more for something, that's going to get attention. And I think when we're looking at some of these impact fees and we're looking at some of this stuff, I think when we look at what we can do for permitting and what we can do for renewals on all sorts of stuff like licensing, which, for instance, like if you've got licensing and you're working in Springfield for licensing, or that has to translate to Joplin or Branson or whatever. And so they're licensing that are being issued from Springfield or through the state. And you have to pay that fee everywhere you go, So if you want to work in a particular town, you got to pay that fee. You got to have a business license in that town. You got to do all these different things to work within that municipality. And those are all things that everybody expects. And I don't know if that we really capitalize on a lot of that. And I think it's something that if we started implementing that more, and there may be a reason why we don't. So I'm not saying that it's just something we're missing out on, but I do believe that when we're looking at $87 or even $1,000, I think we'll find that there's a lot of money that other places around us are making off of contractors and off of the permit fees, off of the licensing, off of the business licenses and everything that it takes to work in that town. And it also increases the quality of the construction that's being done, but it doesn't put us out of step with our neighbors. I think they'll come here and they'll end up paying more money on stuff like that. And they're not really going to notice it because it's just what they do everywhere. So it's just that those are expected fees that I don't know if we always are capitalizing on. I don't know if that's the right word. It's probably not the right word to use, but I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it may be something to look into.
Bruce, you're muted. Can you unmute?
I had a follow-up for RJ. You're in the electrical business, and so you're accustomed to new construction. And I was trying to follow what you were saying. Are you saying that there are inspections and fees that are common in other areas that we are not imposing here in Ozark?
Well, to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with we were talking about multifamily, for instance. So I don't have a lot of that. I've never done any multifamily projects or anything like that in Ozark. So I'm not sure exactly what we're doing. But for instance, if I'm doing multifamily, even in Springfield, or if I'm doing multifamily in Rogers, Arkansas, or whatever, no matter what we're doing, like we have a large project going on in Springfield right now, and just to get the electrical permit, you're talking about it's a $5,000 permit for me, just for the electrical, based on the size of the project. A multifamily project we're doing in Rogers, we paid about almost $5,000 for that fee. We have one inspector there too. So there's one inspector that inspects every trade, but each trade, depending on the size, each town there's a lot of different methods. So for the permit for the multifamily one there, it was based off of how many, basically a range or an oven, how many of those there are. They charge you for so much of particular things that stacks up on these projects. And when you go into any town, there's going to be a fee, and it's going to be the bigger the project, the way bigger the fee. And I think that with the renewals of licensing, and what I mean by that is, like, for instance, a master's license or electrician or plumbers or things like that, we just bring state issued licensing to that municipality, and that's all they're wanting to see, that you have the licensing that was issued by someone else, but you still have to come bring that paperwork, and you pay $50 a year for that, and then you have to have your bond through there and things like that. So there's fees that come with just working in the town, but then there's also permitting fees that come with every single project. And for instance, when you go in front of the board in Springfield to get your, and their process is a bit more than I would recommend for us, but you know, their renewal fees and all their different stuff like that. Yeah, they generate revenue off of that, and they're not ashamed to say that they do. I think they know that they offset a lot of construction costs or impact costs with the permitting, and that kind of gets put into the entire project. And it's just something that people do everywhere. So I don't think being on par with that with other towns, especially as we get bigger and we want the right kind of development, we want to get the quality of development. I think those are the kind of fees that people won't balk at as much, because they're doing it everywhere is charging them that, you know, and there's maybe more of an opportunity to generate more revenue, especially on multifamily, larger projects. And I don't think a developer is going to be upset about that, which is really funny, because like I said, we can not charge them all of that, but then they get hung up on the one thing they are paying more of that they're not somewhere else, even though really all in all, that city is making a lot more money off of that development than we are. And I, as a city. So that's the only thing I would say might be an opportunity to look at. And you guys may already have done that. I'm not saying you've not.
Are you saying that we are on par with others in terms of fees for the construction types that you're talking about, or we're not on par?
I don't think we charge fees like that. And I also don't think, and we also don't require renewal licensing, things like that. And the reason why I say that is because really what you're going to do is, if you have a construction company and they want to do work in that town, it's like when they have to pull a business license. Well, to pull a business license, you got to have your license registered here too. So that's going to cost you $50. Then you're going to pay $150 to get your business license or whatever. Then you're going to get, so then I can work in the town. But then when I get the project, now I'm also paying the fees to get it inspected and things like that. I don't know if we're doing all of that. And I'm sure Steve and stuff could probably answer that question a little bit better.
Yeah, we actually are not doing that. The only license you're required to get to do business in the city of Ozark is a business license. They're actually a business registration, more appropriately stated. We don't have professional licensing like Springfield or the bigger cities. If you're a contractor, you don't have to get a contractor's license. I know RJ can tell you about this. Just to do business or even submit a plan in the city of Springfield, as an electrician, I believe, and correct me, RJ, if I'm wrong, you have to be a master electrician to even submit those plans and sign off on those, or they're not even going to accept that. So electricians, plumbers, all kinds of professional trades are required to have licenses in addition to business or registrations in most other cities. No, we do not do that.
Yeah, that's kind of it. And you know, a lot of towns, like for instance, even it's really weird sometimes how small a towns like Marionville, what they require, and you'll get kind of caught off guard because you're like, oh, I didn't realize I had to get registered with you guys to get an inspection out there and go that extra mile. Not saying that Marionville goes above and beyond. I'm just saying, or that we're behind. I don't think we're necessarily behind with a lot of smaller towns. I just think as we grow and as our plan goes to grow, and as we're looking at trying to get more fees out of construction, I think that might be something that we were met with less resistance on, especially if we're within, if we are within reason. I think it might be something easily done, something that we're kind of already doing anyway. We're already providing inspections and we are kind of having permits and stuff like that. I think it might be a good way to offset some of these impact fees without upsetting anybody or really drawing attention to it. And at the same time, I think we'll get a lot better work. One thing I will say is like in Ozark, for instance, and in other towns, I'm not saying just us, you see a lot of really poorly done. I noticed it in electrical, but I'm an electrician, so that's going to be something that stands out to me. But you know, something that you would never see somewhere like Springfield or Branson or Joplin. You know, you have a lot of different towns that are getting to that size. And I remember when Branson started getting that way years ago, and Joplin's been that way forever and stuff. So I think we're big enough to start implementing some of those things and starting to offset some of these construction costs for us, especially as we're trying to encourage these multifamily projects and things like that, because that's where you run into the higher fees, because it's so condensed. So something I would be paying for just one house, now I'm paying for 24 of those houses, or whatever we're doing 145 unit complex. It's one building in Rogers, and that's what I mean. It's thousands of dollars there. So I think it's something that we might be able to look at and not be taxing on us as far as the amount of time it takes to track it all, but something that we're like, well, we'll issue a permit to you, but we don't have your master's license on file. You're not registered with the city, those types of things. We just need you to come in, show your documentation, fill out your work, pay your fees, and then we'll issue you a permit. And then it helps pay for the inspector that goes out there, and it also helps pay for any kind of costs that we're taking on as a city to have that project come to fruition. So just a little bit of
if that's a direction you guys decide to go, and we want us to investigate that and look into it further, we can bring you that information. I will say that, and I don't know this, but the new software that we recently purchased for the Planning and Development Department probably has a module or something that we might be able to utilize or purchase in addition to be able to track those types of things, contractors, licenses, and things like that. I don't know that. That would be a question for Cameron, and he could research that, and let us know, but I don't know that.
Nathan?
Yeah, sure. I would caution against that direction a little bit. I am in favor of, the taxpayers shouldn't have to bear the expense for a cost that's not theirs. And so, I'm cool. I enjoy, or don't enjoy, but I'm fine with doing these fee studies, figuring out where the money should go, who actually owes what. And I understand what Mr. Flores is saying and how we can kind of commingle some of this, but it also muddies the waters. So that if we come up short, where's the money coming from? Or do we raise fees, which had nothing to do with water, but kind of still contributes to the whole pot? I mean, I would prefer to be as targeted as possible in all of our fees. I feel like each thing should be very clear about what it's doing and what it's paying for. And I wouldn't want to get in a scenario where you kind of pull money from multiple sources because we don't have the political will to set any particular fee at what it should actually be.
All right. You have what you need?
I think we do. I think that we can bring back to you. I think the primary thing that we'll probably be doing is bringing you adjustments for the multifamily. I think what I'm hearing is that we probably need to have further discussions about any, if any at all, on the single family, but I think that we'll probably just leave that where it is, or that's what we would propose. So I think the adjustment and the correction to the multifamily will be what you see next. And then we'll have further discussions about all the other things that intertwine, like density and those types of things. And then we'll do some more research with our legal counsel and, make sure that we're getting the right 10-year plan for our sewer master plan to be implemented and exactly how we're going to pay for that. So anyway, it'll take several steps, but several ordinances, but first thing first. So yeah, I got what we need, and the next things on the item, on the agenda are updates. I'm going to turn that over to Samantha, and then we'll go back to Jeremy for an update on the downtown project.
Okay, sorry guys, I'm trying to get desktop here. I know it's a pain. Can you guys see this presentation, a PowerPoint? I don't know what you can see. Okay. All right, let me get this out of the way. Okay, so Monday night, there will be a, sorry guys, I'm trying to get it to where I can see this. There is going to be a maintenance agreement that will come forward. It is for the property down by Riverside. The reason that it's coming forward is there are 2 grants that we've applied for. We applied for a recreational trails program grant and a land and conservation fund grant. It has an 80-20 match. We were going to apply for it last year, but we got too far in. And then with all the construction and that stuff, we actually didn't get to. We designed it all up and then didn't get to submit it. But the year before that, the Planning and Zoning Department actually had submitted it. So basically, there's a piece of property. I'll show it to you right here. This is the park area down on where the new Riverside Bridge went in. And the outlined in the pink, hold on, sorry, Ted's trying to get back in, is where we are going to maintain. And the reason is that I called the RTP grant place and they said that it has always been said that that this county is going to dedicate this over to us. But if we take it now, then we won't get part of the credit for the grant. So there's a value to this land. And if the county dedicates it over to us, we could use it for our 80-20 match when we go to apply for the grant. But if they dedicate us to us now, we won't be able to. And then we also get points for like working with an organization. So they want it off their books, so they're asking us to maintain it until we can accept it as our property. Like I said, it'll work better if we accept it once we apply for the grant and say, okay, Christian County is dedicating this over to us. So this is, it's better that way. So does that make any sense? Does anybody have any questions on it? Sorry, I can't see you guys, so give me a sec.
Yes, speak up if you have any questions because, okay, there we go. We can see each other now. Go ahead, Nathan.
What was the question?
What does maintain it mean?
Means mow it. The pink area will be mowed and brush hog will be the outside area.
And is the rock and everything still good over there? We don't need to haul in any more rock. We're not going to do anything to the surface of the parking lot or any of that right now?
No, not right now. I mean, eventually it was supposed to be dedicated to us anyway. It was going to be our property. It was always said it was going to be our property. It's just in order to get us to the grant and not take it now, we have to come up with some sort of lease so that we have it and they don't have to take care of it. So it's going to be our problem no matter what. It just works better for my grant if we wait and take it from them later.
RJ?
I think that's great. The only thing I was going to ask is that little parking lot area will we get that too? Or will that, I know it's not outlined, but that just means we don't have to mow it, right?
Yeah, it just means we don't have to mow that area. We'll get that whole area down there. And there's actually another part that the mayor signed the other day. Did you sign? I think you signed it. We call it the Ackers property. It's where the old Riverside Inn was. We actually have that property and it will be deeded to us by the end of the year. The county also wanted that off their books. So we have that property and then this property. We just didn't want to take it right now. So we're just going to maintain it for a little while.
The Acker property was actually right-of-way that was left over from the acquisition of the right-of-way we needed to build the bridge. And that was done through a warranty deed that was signed off by the mayor this week. And we recorded it, and it was delivered to the county. So we should have the Acker property taken care of. But yeah, Samantha's talking primarily about the Riverside Inn property that was acquired by the county several years ago through the FEMA floodplain buyout program.
Well, let me just explain the Acker property a little bit. We use that internally because the piece of property that had to be bought for right of way for the new road was bought from the Acker family. And that basically split their property because the old road was on the outside. It was on the west, kind of alongside the river, once you got past the Riverside Inn property. So basically there are two properties, the part that Samantha has just shown you, then the Acker property, which is basically the right of way that had to be purchased, which is on the west side of the new road. So it's just nothing but dirt and grass. It was never part of Riverside, but that will be part of the property that we own. Okay? That's it.
Steve, do you want me to do the downtown construction?
I think Jeremy was going to give him an update on that.
Well, if you want to do the communication part, then I can do that.
Okay, we're going to move to item number 3, and I think that Samantha and Jeremy are both going to give you a little bit of an update on where we're at with the downtown capital improvement plan, because there's some important dates that are coming up from a construction standpoint that I think you guys need to know. Sam, go ahead and tell them how we're communicating.
So the Public Works Department came up with like a little QR code that we've given to all the businesses down there. We've posted it online. We also we did a video yesterday. The Assistant Director, John McCart, did an awesome video. It's been great comments online. We've shared that. We have also reached out to Fremont Hills, Billings, Clever, Sparta, and Nixa, and they have shared the one-way, like our information on there, because we were worried that people were going to come to pay their end of year sales, property tax and that stuff at the courthouse. So we were trying to say like, hey, please inform your citizens. This is going to be something that's happening. So we reached out to all those outlying communities so that they could pass the information on, just so it would help like not clog up downtown, and maybe just make it a little easier on the PD too. Everything's posted online. And we'll continue to answer questions. I've reached out to the county and informed them so they could let their employees know. So as far as communication wise, if someone thinks of something that we haven't thought of, please let me know. Jeremy can help with dates, but that's coming this weekend. So
one thing on communication that is not official from the city, but there is a kind of a citizen group that has been posting on Facebook to tomorrow night will be the last night you can cruise the square and go 2 ways. So don't know if you see that. That's not an official HRD or city activity, but it will probably happen because it's on Facebook.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so I was barely able to hear what Mayor Gardner said there, but I think it was about the downtown and the last weekend of One Way. We've been coordinating with the Historic River District, and this is the last weekend. Actually, tomorrow night is the last night for the Parade of Lights. So I think that will be kind of the last hurrah to celebrate not only the beautiful lights that are downtown, but the one-way cruising around through there. I'm showing you this graphic, if you all can see my screen. We are, as of today, done with the yellow, blue, and green. So we are moving into this final phase, phase 4. We will be starting on the corner of Church and 2nd Avenue, right over here by Torgeson, the log cabin, etc. And then we will advance counterclockwise around the square. And as Sam said, we have handed out multiple flyers, informational pieces. We have written a lot of narrative for this project. So if you have any questions, definitely go to our website. It's under the Historic River District, under our 3/8 cent sales tax page. There is a lot of information on there. Now we've got videos as well. But here's the deal. I tell people everywhere, we do a lot of face-to-face or 6 feet conversations out here on the square. If you have questions, please send them to us. A lot of these times, these people are hearing something third hand, fourth hand, and then we get done talking to them and show them the resources. And, we've made a friend or an ally out of the deal. So, please know that you can always send them our direction. Here's the big plan for this weekend. Like I said, Parade of Lights Friday night. Saturday morning, staff's coming in to restripe the interior portion of the square. If you can see my cursor, you can see that the current striping goes against the grain of what we'll be doing with this counterclockwise driving pattern. So we're going to mark out the old stripes and restripe them to line up with the one-way pattern. I'm hoping that we're done by Saturday night. That could bleed over into Sunday because it's a lot of painting. But the idea there was to do it on the weekend. We all know that the weekends are typically kind of a slower period when all the law offices and everything are not open downtown. So we're going to get that done. The goal is Sunday evening to put all the signage out, and we met with the police department yesterday, and we went over our signage plan. We have a very aggressive signage plan because this is going to take some getting used to. So we've got a lot of one-way barricades. We've got a lot of do not enter, just to get people used to this. So the idea is to get them going one way and start on these improvements. One more update, just because we've got the Board of Aldermen here. We have had multiple conversations about this downtown project with the county. Based upon our last conversation with them last week, I've shaded this area blue and I've labeled it future project to be completed by county. I just want people to be clear that, early on we had talked about doing the sidewalk around the square. We're still going to be doing the curb and gutter and the bulb outs and all those great things. Everything outside of the blue will be our responsibility. But that blue shading there is to represent what the county has determined will be their future phase of improvements. We'll still get all these bulb outs built and everything. It'll look fantastic. It's just the sidewalk around the square. They have decided to take that responsibility on by themselves and not be a part of this project. So that is one change. And if you get to ask any questions about that, again, send them to us, or just let them know that the county will be taking care of that at a future time. Those are the big dates coming up. We got a lot of signage out there. MoDOT's allowed us to use their electronic message boards. I was talking to Sam about, when this first came out with the one-way. I think we're up to like 70% of the comments are positive. I think the proof will be in the pudding. Once we get this thing going, I think it's going to be safer. I think it's going to be more pedestrian friendly. And I think it's going to be more efficient. But certainly during construction, this is a much safer alternative. So with that, one other downtown update. I wanted to let everybody know, we kind of went through some tense times with the siphon that runs through the Finley River downtown. We have completed that project, and it came in at $15,000. So that's a huge win. We thought, we went to you and showed you the worst case scenario, but that is now completed, and it'll provide us the protection we need while we continue to move forward with our master plan. So again, we're getting everything in the downtown prepared for not only an experience, but for future development. So I hope you're all excited. And again, always, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. This is a multifaceted, large project that happens to be on some hallowed ground, if you will. And we take this very seriously, and we are trying our best to communicate, even in the age of COVID. We're knocking on doors and trying to respect people's privacy, but that's where we stand right now with the downtown. Are there any questions?
Heather?
Hey, Jeremy, is the county going to do the sidewalks? They are going to do sidewalks, right?
Let's let Steve answer that. He had a meeting with them last week.
Yeah, so we've been talking to the county, obviously, since we started this project, and we went into this project designing a Cadillac. We wanted to make sure that we took all the input from everyone downtown, including HRD, which is our historic river district. We've been many, many meetings. What do we want this to look like? So we were moving forward with designing that full picture. We moved past the interim design and we got to the real construction drawings, because we are going to be putting this out for bid in the spring. So we asked the county, look, now is the time we have to have a hard decision. We have itemized the estimated cost. We know what this is going to cost. Do you want us to design this and put this out in our bid and do it along with the project, or don't you? I went the other day to the county commission to request a 20-foot construction easement where we're going to be tearing out the interior curbs. We did get that, but during that meeting, they said, thank you, but no thank you. We would rather do it ourselves. So we went from doing the curb and the sidewalk and putting the underground utilities in, the boxes we talked about to be able to plug in the sprinkler systems, the water, to plug in for the food trucks, all that. We're not going to be doing that now. That is not our property. We don't have the authorization to do that, and the county has said that they would do that later. I don't know when that is. if they have an intention to do it, but everything on the inside of the curb will be theirs, like Jeremy showed that picture, and everything outside will be ours. We asked and they decided to do that on their own, Heather, so I don't know. That's where we're at right now, so.
Yeah, and one real quick point of clarity. We are going to stub out with our infrastructure over into the square for things like the fountain and for special events and for irrigation. We're just going to leave it right at the interior portion of the square so that the county then can pick it up. We're going to be in there doing all the water lines, obviously, anyway, so we have decided to stub that out so that they're prepared for the future. We'd love to do it all, but at least we can do that and prevent us from cutting those streets when they decide to come back in there and make those improvements. So between that and an enormous amount of conduit that we'll be putting underneath the street for future use, you don't want to build a street, you don't want to invest this type of money and then come back and start cutting these things and then they look like a quilt, patchwork of just paving and concrete, so.
And that's an excellent point, Jeremy. I want you to know that Jeremy did walk around with the facility manager of the county. And so those stub outs that he's talking about, water, whatever, we'll have that on the inside of the curb, but that's where we'll end it. And then that'll be for them to pick up when they pick it up. Good point, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jeremy, this is kind of back to Jeremy or Steve. And I'm just for clarity, I may have misunderstood or misheard or not heard completely. TED Talk, county ain't going to do that. So if they're not committing to do it now, they're not going to do it later. So other than obviously the enhancements of being able to do the food trucks and stuff like that, Jeremy, what was the impact? What would be the impact of them not doing all that? Because again, this is TED Talk. I have no inside information on this whatsoever. The county's not going to spend money doing that. From my perspective, I mean, they've worked with us on projects, don't get me wrong, but they've never, that I'm aware of, really taken a stance on trying to improve things like that, sidewalks around the square and stuff like that. So I have no reason to believe that they ever will. But what's the big picture? What's the impact that they don't ever do that to our overall plan for the downtown? And if I misunderstood or you've already said that, I apologize.
No, you said it correctly. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is very disappointing. Obviously, the historic square is the centerpiece of our town, the county seat. We were hoping to do this all at once because there's some economies of scale. We're going to have contractors there. Our goal was to turn this into an event space that is showcasing the historic downtown square. You look at what's going on with the gazebo. It was just awarded a grant through Historic River District. That's going to turn into an event space where concerts and live music can occur. We were trying to play off of that and just turn our square into an absolute center of activity. And by them not doing this, I think it slows that down. We've tried multiple ways of presenting this to them and showing them the cost. But if you're asking what it does, it takes us from what, like Steve described, a Cadillac on the interior of the square to just curb and gutter. We're going to backfill with seed and straw, and I really hope they do this in the future. But yeah, it's frustrating, to say the least.
I think the other thing that, of course, we all like to see the improvements because, we were heading in that direction, and they have contractors, they say that they can do it themselves and whatnot. Again, you can take that for what it is, but I think it also prolongs the time period for which the square will be torn up. I mean, if we could get in there and do it while it's all torn up, and then once you're done with all the work, you're done and you're out of there, why would you want to wait another year to come back and then tear it all up again, only to keep the chaos of construction going? I think that one makes less sense to me. I think they could certainly afford it and they can budget for it. I just don't know why you'd want to come in after we backfilled and seeded and strawed and then tear all that right back out again and
Well,
try to keep it. I didn't understand that.
That's part of what I was going with, Steve, when I said that they're not going to do it because it's cheaper. Everybody knows that. It's cheaper to do it now while it's torn up. And even if they were doing it with their own people or they had their own resources, it's still cheaper to do that together at the same time than it is to do it later, which is part of the reason why I said they're not going to do it, now or in the future. So that's where I was going with trying to just understand the big picture, what the impact that was. So thank you.
Any other questions? Bruce, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me then that their leadership has reached a consensus that's a hard consensus, and there's no point in informally reaching out by our elected leadership and just running it by them personally. And I mean,
I wouldn't say
it seems incomprehensible to me if I understand the issue correctly. It seems incomprehensible to me that this has happened, but I'm not trying to be critical of the county. I don't pretend to know all of their issues, but if it's incomprehensible, then I don't know if it's worth us articulating why this is needed.
Bruce, I agree with you. I did not know that until this morning, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I intend to talk to the commissioners, or at least the presiding commissioner, and get a little more input. I think a little prodding is not a bad idea. So I understand why Steve didn't, because it's our place as an elected official to do that. So I've already written a note. I will contact Ralph and get more information on that, because it's just not the right thing to do. They need to go ahead and do it. So,
and the key for Jeremy, he's to get this thing designed. And so, if they're going to change course and they're going to allow us to do this and partner with us, Jeremy needs to know that, because he's got to direct our engineers on what their actual bid package they're putting together. Jeremy, I don't know the deadline of that. So.
Yeah. So if we are going to, if the elected officials, which that's a great idea. I think I support that you all reaching out to them. If you do, please know that we have detailed cost estimates, and we had a plan put together showing what would be their cost versus our cost. I mean, there was a lot of time and effort put into just the breaking down the preliminary cost estimates and showing what they would be responsible for and what we would be responsible for. What I'm saying is, if you need supporting document to show how this was presented, and might I say, presented multiple times. We've done this for 2 years, and then here recently, that's when the door officially shut, or hopefully not officially shut. But the long and short of it is, if you need supporting documents, graphics, or anything while you're having those conversations with the elected officials, we have done a lot of work putting our story together. So please reach out to us.
Okay, thank you guys. We're going to the next one and then we'll wrap it up. Go, Sam.
Okay. So I just want to give a quick update on the cold storage. I am meeting the contractor out there tomorrow. We're still working on trying to get exactly what we need lined out. I have worked with Amanda, and she put together a short-term lease that we can, and just in case the building doesn't get built in time, we'll still have a place for the PD to stay. So we're still working on that. Everything's moving forward. As soon as I have hard numbers, I will come back to the board and make sure I let you guys know. It's just, I wanted to make sure we do due diligence and have him meet me out there and really go over so that we can get the best price for that project on what we're working on. So.
Who is the contractor?
Well, we are under contract with Smith & Edwards, and they built the first building, and we are already under contract with them. So if we move forward with them, then we won't have to go out to bid for it.
That makes sense.
So he's going to meet me out there tomorrow, and hopefully I'll get some hard numbers by the weekend. So.
I'm just going to say one thing before we go to the COVID updates. While we were having that discussion about sewer rates, and that Jeremy pointed out when he was talking to Alderman Flores, that you know, back in 2006, we had a necessity to jump forward and get a lot of bond debt and everything. And so that kind of put us ahead of the game and allowed us to continue to grow. And the other cities are starting to catch up with us. So I text the city administrator in Republic, and just so you know, they are preparing a April 2021 ballot measure to borrow $36 million in bonds to upgrade their sewer system. And so their rates, both connection and user fee, will be going up. So I'm just, like Jeremy said, we were ahead of the game. The other cities are catching up. So I just wanted you to know that. So, you know, I just got that. So I wanted to kind of go back to that topic and let you know. So that is true what Jeremy said and accurate. So now we can just go to COVID updates. If there are any, Samantha, if you have any from the health department, please provide them or anything. I tell them where to go to find it.
Nowhere to go.
So I get a couple of questions sometimes, like they'll ask, like, can I have daily updates for hospital numbers? That seems to be the hot button topic right now. When we switched to the mask ordinance, the health department reached out to Cox and Mercy, and they said they will only report the numbers to us on Mondays and Fridays. So she has all her numbers that she gets from the state on how many people, but we don't actually get the hospitalization numbers until around noon on Monday and Friday, which is why once she puts it all together, then usually you'll see a post to the health department Monday evening or Friday evening, and then sometimes Tuesday morning. So that's the most up-to-date, fastest information. The health department is severely behind. She sent me the numbers for Monday I updated, and when she told me, she said, I have at least 100 more cases we haven't even got to. So Friday's numbers are going to be really bad. That happens. It's just when we report only 2 days, you kind of get whatever they've gotten to is what the numbers that we get. So Friday's numbers are going to be probably pretty rough because we had some leftover from Monday that didn't get counted and let people know. So Ted?
Thank you. Hey, why does Greene County get it daily and we don't then, if it's coming from the hospitals?
I don't know. That's all they would commit to us was Mondays and Fridays.
Here's my problem with this. Greene County tries to make us look bad, and Cox Cox specific. Well, I don't know. The hospital, everybody tries to make us look bad as we're causing all the problems. But if they're giving the data to Greene County daily, then we need the data daily too. Because if this is as bad as it is, we can't manage on 2 days a week, 2 out of 7. That's not very smart. And it's just like, if they're providing it to Greene County, because Greene County updates every day at 1 p.m., I believe. Okay, so they're getting that data from the hospitals. If they're getting it from the hospitals, we get it from the hospitals. If we don't get it from the hospitals, then quit giving us a hard time. I mean, you can't play both ways. And I mean, I'm not trying to, make a bigger issue than it is, but you can't give us a hard time, and you can't have your Greene County Health Department director give us a hard time, and you're only giving us part of the data when you're giving everybody else all the data. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, I'm hot about that, but if you're going to manage, and again, I'm assuming this is a war. If this is a war, I need data more than 2 days out of 7. And if they can't get me data, I understand that because they got other priorities. But if they're giving someone else that data, then that excuse goes out the window. There's a reason why they don't want Ozark Christian County having that data if they're producing it and giving it to someone else. And we know they are producing it and giving it to someone else. So from my perspective, whoever's in charge needs to give us the data every day. Now, if we can't get it out because the health department's overwhelmed or whatever else, that's our fault, right? That's our fault if we can't get it out physically because of that. But I resent that someone is telling me they can't give us the data on a daily basis and they're giving it to Greene County and Springfield. I resent that. And you can tell anybody in the brother that I said that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ted. So basically, our health department is so overworked, understaffed. I don't know what the reason is. All I know is that she can only produce it for me 2 days a week. So I don't know if she specifically only asked because that's what she wanted. I know they were only trying to give us 1 day a week. And then she said, I put out reports 2 days a week. So they committed to us to doing 2 days a week. I don't think our health department can do more than they're doing. I don't think that they can. So.
Well, it sounds to me like the information may be available to our health department, but they're not able to get it out. So it doesn't sound to me like Greene County's fault.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I thought I heard you. I thought, Sam, and I apologize if I misunderstood it. I thought I heard you say we weren't getting the data from the hospitals except twice a week. Again, if it's our health
on Mondays and Fridays.
That's we are physically only getting that data from the hospitals on Mondays and Fridays.
Yes.
Okay, then I will stand with what I said then. That's wrong. The hospitals need to get off their butt and give us the data. If they're giving it to Greene County 5 days a week, they can give it to us. It's just like another push of a button. It's not a big deal. And so that's where that's where I will stand with what I said. Again, but if it's our health department that can't get it out, that's another issue. And I don't want to beat them up if they're overworked and can't do it. But that is wrong. I want to be very, very, very clear. If Mercy and Cox is giving that information to Greene County on a daily basis, it is wrong of them to withhold it from us. It is wrong of them to withhold it.
Dan, calm down for a minute. It probably.
Well, no, she just said the hospital is only giving it to us 2 days a week. I thought.
Right. But I don't know if the reason is because we only ask for it twice a week, because we only report on Mondays and Fridays. I don't know that because I wasn't in that conversation. So she may have only said, I only want it Mondays and Fridays. I don't know.
If that's,
I'm just telling you, we get it from them 2 days a week, and I put it out 2 days a week on Mondays and Fridays.
If it's on us, it's on us. I'm good.
Okay, now.
RJ, I can't remember.
My only question was, does anybody know what the data looks like? I mean, is it just an email showing our numbers at that moment in time? And if it is something like that, is that something that can't be shared any other way than them giving it directly to the health department and the health department giving it out? Or is it something where, is it something that we can all see every day just to see where we're at? Is that, or is there some kind of violation of that? Or, it sounds like it's probably just an email with some numbers on it, I'm assuming.
Yes, so they report to us on Mondays by sending an email. They say we have 14, Cox will say, I have 14 Christian County residents and 5 of them are on ventilators. And then Mercy does the same thing. We have that information from them via email by usually around noon. It comes to, because I don't usually get it till about 2 from the health department. So that is how I'm assuming it's coming via email, because she always says, I'm waiting for this email from Mercy, or I'm waiting for the email from Cox, and I'll give you the numbers. And then basically it's a message. She puts them all in there. This is how many active cases. This is how many current positives. And then I put it into a format, like how we do it. And then I post it. I send out a press release and I send out it on social media. It's how it's working right now. Like I said, I don't know, because I'm just the person who gets the information and puts it out. I'm assuming it's an email, is my understanding. I also don't know if you could go to Cox or Mercy, and if they have like a dashboard there for their own, that might be something, but I don't know. Again, like everything is delayed, so it makes it really weird to, just makes it hard to communicate. So we've just went with Mondays and Fridays, and everybody seems to be able to handle it. And then we always say this was last updated 3 days ago. So you'll know how many days those numbers cover. And we're doing the best to kind of, get that information out.
2 more comments on COVID. Everybody is aware that Springfield has extended their mask order, I think, till April the 9th. I spoke with Brian Steele in Nixa yesterday, and he is anticipating extending theirs Monday. So I don't know what date that will be, but that is what he told me yesterday. So just FYI. Okay, is that it, Steve?
Hey, that's it.
Amanda wants
Oh, wait a
I'm
minute.
sorry.
Heather.
I'm sorry.
Heather, didn't see you.
Just a question on the getting the data. If we had that information daily, is there any action that would be taken on it? Is there a reason that having the information daily is really important? I mean, other than it's important to people that it's happening to.
I guess you want me to answer that question? We have gotten far less engagement on the Christian County Health Department's page. We used to get hundreds of comments whenever I would post something, and now there's maybe 2. So I don't know if people necessarily can digest it every day. It would get lost anyway, because when people share it, you don't know if it was the last one shared.
Yeah.
I guess I can answer your question. I don't think it changes anything because the numbers are still the same. Just they know right now, people know on Mondays and Fridays that they can get that information.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else?
No, guys, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time with us this morning. I think this was all valuable information. We've got direction, you've got updates, and we'll see you on the Zoom for the last board meeting of 2020 on Monday. Thank you.
Here, motion to adjourn in a second. Okay, I see. Yes. Heather and Nathan. All right, all in favor? Leave.